Hey everybody, this is Perch. I do videos like this from time to time, talking about how, to me, the magic of comics is that you can do anything. You can have any kind of genre, any kind of character, any kind of anything. And if you're going to do diversity, if you're going to have, different genders, different sexualities, you're going to have. I think that handicapped characters are tougher, particularly when you live in a world where Reed Richards could like invent nanobots, just fix you right up in like a half second. Like in all seriousness, in the Marvel universe, and it's one of those things you can't really go into, but like Iron Man's doing these stories where Tony Stark's like, Tony Stark's broke, and he's pissed about having to build all those weapons, and he just doesn't want to be known for building weapons. He's a super smart person. He can have armor coming out of the pores in his body. He's got there's so much he can do. Like literally, he's got, infinite intelligence. And also he's got a bunch of buddies from the Black Panther to Reed Richards to anything. And Tony's like, what's one thing I could do to get people to forget that I used to sell missiles and bombs and things? Landmines, presumably, blew people's legs off and things. I know. I have the technology, the money, and the wherewithal that I could pretty much cure any kind of handicap situation, anything. And that but why wouldn't you, right? I mean, at this point, so every now and then, like a character will show up in like a wheelchair or with little arm crutches, things. You're like, but Tony Stark, you're like in a room with him right now. Fix it. Reed, no, it's not. It's important that we don't fix this. It's core to my character's identity. What? No. I'm sorry. That's no. Anyway, it would take away from me. But I think that there's a lot that can be done, which is why it frustrates me a little bit when this isn't done. When you get very cookie cutter characters, very poor results. Just they'll introduce a character, celebrate that they're asexual, and then we never see the character again or mention it ever again. So is that really the best way you want to do it? Somehow this take I'm giving you right now has resulted in me being called a right-wing, horrifying, comics gate, hate everything but white male superheroes. I'm not sure how you get from point A to point B, unless you're saying that this is a massive sneaky deepfake. I have done 3,000 videos, all designed to trick you into thinking that I care about LGBTQ characters, but I secretly want you to think about, white right-wing characters. It's all been a giant con. For 3,000 videos and 5+ years, I've been at this sneakily, trying to lure you over into thinking I'm reasonable. Right when you least expect it, I'm going to be like, Germany really should have taken over the world back like 80 years ago. Think of all the sauerkraut we'd be eating. It's so healthy. It's so healthy, right? And then you'd be like, oh man, but I believed him for 3,000 videos. I can't change my opinion now. Anyway. Yeah, that's kind of the way it goes, folks. All right, so let me read this mail to you here real quick. It's LGBTQ characters that are taken serious. And like I said, I did a video a little bit ago about, hey, why is it that if you want to promote Pride, you're putting out Pride issues, Pride books, why not take it serious? And for that matter, Caligula, the character Rachel Pollack wrote, and hats off to Joe Corallo, who just hot off the presses came out with a Doom Patrol. Well, no, sorry, it's a tribute to Rachel Pollack, and it has Doom Patrol stories in it, including a brand new one. That's right, DC gave Joe some money. Good for them. And it's a story about Caligula and kind of returning her into the DC universe. And good for you, Joe, for getting to do that. And Joe, of course, was a close friend of Rachel Pollack, and so I think, it's a very fitting tribute. So I'm glad to see that came out. But that was a story taken seriously, featuring featuring a transgender character that was taken, serious, not taken as a, like it was a Saturday morning, cartoon public notice. It was actually taken seriously. That's how you do it. It's not that hard. I mean, no offense to Joe, but it's not that hard to just take your character seriously. Anyway, this mail says, hey, Perch, so I just watched a recent video on LGBT characters, and you want LGBT characters taken seriously. I just think if you're making the attempt, you should actually make the attempt, right? That's in my mind. I want good comics with well-written stories. If you take your characters seriously, I think they're going to be well-written stories. QED, that's my point of view. It was this, do you remember the character Circuit Breaker? It is an easy guess because I am the only one who talks about him. I think I do remember the character Circuit Breaker, but in fairness, what was the woman in Transformers that had she was kind of fused with metal parts very, very early in the Marvel series, used to be back in the 80s. Wasn't she also called Circuit Breaker? I don't remember. Anyway, Wes made a video about him. Wait, sorry, I skipped ahead. It says, as you know, ever since he announced, everyone made controversy about him being a trans man. Wes made a video about him, about the announcement and Circuit Breaker's first story in Lazarus Planet. That's right. I'm thinking of the OG Circuit Breaker. I may have gotten it wrong. Do you remember this woman? I think she was a redhead, too. But anyway, she would fly around in this kind of half metal, half naked suit. And for whatever reason, people said she was a trans character as well in some places. But in this case, I think the transition was into like half robot. I'm not sure that's quite the same thing, but all right. As I read Circuit Breaker, and I say Circuit Breaker is decent, the writer made him a superhero. The writer wrote Circuit Breaker seriously, not as a joke. There is no issue about Circuit Breaker being trans. His parents are not transphobic. The writer doesn't focus on his love life. It focuses on him being a superhero and figuring his power out. He also admires the Flash. The writer wrote Circuit Breaker as an actual character, just as serious as a straight character. A year later, that announcement of DC Pride 2024, Wes made a video and admits he doesn't remember Circuit Breaker. I do remember him because I have a good memory since I'm Spear AI. Yeah, meat bag. Oh, thanks. You've gone weird with your mail anyway. Mostly he has done, most he has done is just him being a hero. The only cringe I remember is meeting Jess Chambers, the non-binary Flash from Future State. That character sucks. But yeah, Circuit Breaker earned my respect because of an actual focus on being a hero. I read Circuit Breaker in DC Pride 2024. Jay Garrick needs Circuit Breaker's help to stop this monster, and Circuit Breaker's still force does have connection to the Phantom Zone. I actually commented on Zach's DC Pride video about what he thought on the character. No heart and no video. No heart, no... guess Circuit Breaker is not good enough for being a superhero that happens to be trans. So I ask you, Perch, do you remember the cringes and joke part of what LGBT character, rather than the serious part that makes them heroes? Okay, this is a good challenge here. Also, if you're going to say it takes time, it's ironic because the time you use on the cringe part, including a video on mags, as you say, mags that want attention, it like Alyssa Wong, a non-binary who want self-wish insert. Like we should talk about LGBT characters that are not Midnight or Apollo or Northstar. Okay. You need to expand your know-how on these characters like Batwoman from the comics, Renee Montoya, from the 90s, 2000s for Killen Gillian started writing. You lost me there at the end. Okay, that's the end of the mail. So I think it does take time, but I think it takes time to kind of, settle into this character being memorable. I don't think it takes time for the character to be well written. Those are two different things. You're going to have a character as being well written, and for what it's worth, I'll say from the offset, and I did say in a previous video way back when Circuit Breaker was announced that the character was not bad. The story was good, and I actually think I'm 99% sure I used that character as an example of, hey, you've got a Pride character, but the main thrust of the story is character doing cool stuff, not character try to figure out what kind of jeans to wear and complaining about hips. It's not a joke, by the way, that was in a recent Marvel Pride issue. So I think that I did comment on Circuit Breaker, but written well is half of the equation, and then written consistently and having kind of a better story is another thing. The problem with a lot of LGBT characters is that they show up. If they're very lucky, they get a decent story. They get a story that like what they do with Circuit Breaker, where they actually flesh some things out. We'll get to Batwoman and Renee Montoya in a moment, but we don't need to get to them for a moment. Both characters were written well, but they were written well, and there was a lot of material written on them. It had both. In order to be memorable, you do need a kind of a body of work. It's hard to remember somebody and to have it have an impact if they have one short story in an anthology somewhere. You gotta make it impact like they did with Caligula. There are those characters out there. It's not just all Midnight or Apollo. I've said Wicked and Hulkling I think also fit into this category. I think that it took me a while because I think that with Shatterstar, I actually thought that Peter David did a good job with him. Richter didn't make a lot of sense. Again, it felt like that one was a little odd in how it came together. But, there are characters, but you've got to write the character well, write the character with heart and meaning. And it does help if the character is written as a powerful hero first and then the identity second. Whatever the identity is, by the way. I wouldn't want them going, I'm so proud I'm Irish and white. That's what I like to be. Because actually, you could look back to some Marvel comics in the 80s, and you would occasionally they'd be like, here's a Jewish superhero, and she's got dark hair. And it always felt cringy to me because it felt like they were like, fuck, we need a Jewish superhero, so we'll throw a Jewish character in here. What are the powers? I don't know. Who cares? And that's how a lot of this stuff gets written. And it was written long before you got into the current anthologies and LGBT material or any of that. It was cringy in other areas. I'll give you one that I know a bunch of you guys are going to disagree with me on. Banshee. A lot of Banshee, when that character came out, was like over the top, like, "Hey, matey, we got the," it was like half Scottish, Irish, and sea chanty all put into one. The character was written terribly. Now, over time, that straightened out. You had a good writer actually put some effort into it, and you had some consistency with the characters. And I think those two coming together helps and matters. I think, what the comic companies need to do is, first of all, ignore YouTube and any of these commentators. And if you're like, we're going to get behind, City Boy, or we're going to get behind Circuit Breaker, whatever happens to be, and then ignore the gut reaction to a lot of YouTubers. They're like, oh, here comes the gay again, and just ignore it. Just it doesn't matter. And instead, lean in, say, you know what, we're committing to several stories, and we're going to give this character a good villain to fight. We're going to write some good storyline developments here, and that's what we're going to do. And if you do that, I think first of all, haters look stupid very quickly because it's like, bitch, bitch, bitch. It's like, yeah, but some cool adventures are going on over here. So I'm going to read those. It just makes them look dumb. And I think that's the best thing that you can do. Circuit Breaker needs more stories. Do more stories. Yeah, I do think it matters. And as for I didn't quite get the point there at the end, but it's like, but people are quick to hop on the cringe aspects of characters. Sure. Of course they are. People will hop on anything, including me. We'll all hop on our gut reactions of things. But in order to make something meaningful, it has to, be well written and long lasting. You put both those together, it can work. Anyway, that's my perspective. I do thank you very much for the mail and the challenge, and thanks for listening.